Mr. Mokwariola. It is now 22 days since the federal government suspended Twitter, restricting it from operating in Nigeria after the microblogging site deleted tweets made by the Nigerian President Muhammadu Buhari. While Nigerians are still divided on the suspension, the ECOWAS Court of Justice waded into the matter and the verdict is out. An alleged murder case that looks like something you've read in a Hadley Chase novel or perhaps watched in a movie. Later on the show, we'll take a look at the story of a university student, a Lagos billionaire, and the meeting that changed everything. The Nigerian government is presently studying the ruling issued by the ECOWAS Court to the effect that Twitter users cannot be arrested or prosecuted following the suspension of the activities of the microblogging site in the country. Now, this formed part of the outcomes of this week's Federal Executive Council meeting, and our correspondent, Tai Amudu, reports.
The Nigerian government's decision to suspend Twitter over activities it believes threatens the sovereignty of the country has continued to generate a lot of talk. The government had gone further to warn that it would arrest those still using the microblogging site. A suit had subsequently been filed against the government by the Social Economic Rights and Accountability Project, SERAP, and 176 concerned Nigerians, arguing the unlawful suspension of Twitter in Nigeria and the criminalization of Nigerians. The ECOWAS Court had in a recent ruling prevented the Nigerian government from unlawfully imposing sanctions on Twitter and any other social media service provider, media houses, radio and television stations, and other Nigerians who are Twitter users. It is a matter that came up in council, and the Special Advisor Media and Publicity says the Attorney General of the Federation would advise the federal government on the next step to take.
The Attorney General of the Federation is going to study that report, and then he will advise government on the way forward. The committees set up by the President to engage with Twitter is actually holding a meeting.
The presidency has also denied any involvement in ongoing attempts at the National Assembly to amend the Nigerian Press Council Act and the National Broadcasting Commission Act.
Presidency thing, because the president has nothing to do with that. It's a government thing, and it's the minister that can talk about it.
Certain provisions in the two amendment bills on media laws presently before the National Assembly has caused a lot of concern among media practitioners about this being an attempt to muzzle the press. This is made more worrying by the fact that the move to amend the National Press Council Act and the National Broadcasting Commission Act is being spearheaded by the Minister of Information and Culture. But the presidency makes a clarification that the initiative is a policy that only the Minister of Information and Culture, Lai Mohammed, can address. Also up for discussion was the undertaking of the second peer-reviewed country self-assessment report, which has been approved by President Muhammadu Buhari. Tai Amudu, TVC News, Abuja.
Now, joining me to bring more perspectives on this matter, I have in the studio Olushola Jegede, a lawyer, and on Skype I will be joined by Babatunde Ogundiran, policy analyst. Good to have you on the program this evening, Olushola. So let's begin with you now. Taking a look at what has happened so far with regards to the Twitter ban by the federal government and the latest move by the ECOWAS Court, say the federal government doesn't have the right to prosecute and arrest Twitter users. What do you make of this unfolding development so far?
I think the ruling of ECOWAS is a temporary measure, but is in right course. The ECOWAS court is ruling merely stated what is a obvious fact before, which people have argued that is almost impossible to prosecute the Twitter users, because today there are no laws that prohibit communications via Twitter or any kind of social media platform. So what the ECOWAS court has done in a temporary application file before the court is to rule and say and state that the users cannot be prosecuted for now, but the ECOWAS court is really did not lift the ban yet. The matter is still ongoing, but at least for now it's a temporary reprieve, and people can say, okay, this is what the court has said. People on the right of the law, that the citizens of Nigeria cannot be prosecuted for merely communicating via social media platform.
So with this development, now let me still hold on to you. With this development that we get to see, where the Twitter is being legible rather for anyone to use in the social media space, do you think perhaps we're going to get to the point where it will be regulated, because that is what the federal government is looking at right now? What is the possibility of a regulation of social media in Nigeria? Yes,
it's very possible. The regulation can be done even if they are not registered in Nigeria. The constitution, which allow people to own and operate mediums, platform, did not limit the capacity of the federal government to regulate those platforms. So it can be regulated somewhat, even if they are not registered in Nigeria. But what the manner it has been done is what people has kicked, what everybody has kicked against, that they have to be a regulation. It shouldn't have been done immediately after the president's tweet was deleted. Yes, there's still possibility for regulation, and we've heard that the government are working on something. Those things, they are not yet out. When they are out, we will see that. We have also had some amendment of the press council bill before the National Assembly, but the government has said this is not its own undertaking. It knows nothing about it. That's what the presidency said. So we know along the line there will still be a kind of regulation, and it's not out of place for government to seek to regulate these social media platforms. And
talking about regulation, what are the modalities to achieve this process? What are we likely to see? Is it there's going to be a registration format? What is the exact modalities involved?
Yeah, one of the things government can do is to license this organization, despite the fact that they are not registered in Nigeria. Government could license them, and government could some way control, not totally, to control some of the information they disseminate to the public. For instance, just even this weekend, the Supreme Court of Texas in the United States said Facebook will not be held responsible for the contents that emanated from them, which is leading to the pornography for the children, which is leading to the all those kind of things. That's what the Supreme Court of Texas, United States of America, had just this weekend, that we now hold Facebook responsible, in spite of the fact that America has a law, Section 230 of the Communication Decency Act of the United States, which said the social media platform will not be held liable for the content produced by them. But the Supreme Court of the United States of Texas this weekend said, no, they can be held liable. So government can say, look, we want to, some of the contents you are allowed to happen, because we have seen over the time that a lot of people who are not trained journalists like you come on, and a lot of fraudsters have even used the platform to keep on making advertisement that would not have entered the mainstream media, like Ponzi advertisement. A lot of people have lost billions in this country. So at a point, the government will come in with regulation. So I need to be neatly done. So the government can regulate this, that you are going to be held responsible for some of these contents if you allow them to go out. And even right now, United States Congress, they are bipartisan between Republican and Democrat to further now look at the Section 230, which did not make social media to be held liable, and they want to start holding them liable after the coup d'etat from the Donald Trump or kind of resurrection in the U.S. Congress. So all over the world, people are trying to regulate social media. It was not neatly done in this scenario. That's what happened. All right, let's quickly get in the thoughts of Babatunde on this matter. So Babatunde, what are your thoughts on this whole scenario? Do you think perhaps the federal government might lift the ban on Twitter in Nigeria anytime soon, following the latest move by the ECOWAS court saying that the government doesn't have any right to prosecute or arrest any Twitter user?
As a matter of time, you've actually been Twitter ban. Because when you look at it holistically, you can actually see that both Twitter as well
All right, it seems we're having some connectivity issues with our resource person there. Let me throw that question to you now. Would you think there's a possibility that the government would lift the ban on Twitter?
Yes, there's possibility. For instance, government say it has set up a committee to engage with Twitter, and Twitter has written to the government that they want to negotiate. So there's a possibility. So in the long run, what we are looking at is government might set up a guidelines licensing some of these social media platforms. And government can also generate taxes from their, because they are making a lot of money in Nigeria from their commercial activities in Nigeria. So it's possible. So but we have not, the committee has not been doing much, but soon we believe we are going to be hearing from this committee and see how they liaise with Twitter in lifting this ban. So we see that happening soon, that government will be lifting this ban soon.
And you know, knowing the role that the social media plays in terms of being the first to give out information to many before the mainstream media, and their thoughts that this perhaps could have been a way to gag the press and the freedom of Nigerians, you know, freedom of speech, more or less. Is there any possibility, is there a link somewhere that even though this might be the federal government's way of, you know, not allowing the corporate existence of Nigeria to be threatened, seeing what has happened so far, do you think perhaps there is any element of truth that it is a way to gag the press?
No, I don't think this is a way to gag the press generally, or to gag the people of Nigeria from bringing their communication. There's something about the mode of communication that ship has sailed a long time ago. If Twitter is banned, it takes less than 48 hours for you to set up a blog and report something. Government can ban everything. But because Twitter, they become giant, Facebook, Instagram, people have become accustomed to them, and a lot of things are being done through them. And it's like, to whom much is given, much is expected. You cannot have such a huge platform and a lot of people come in, do a lot of things. And somewhat, if in the United States, it can be said that Twitter is somewhat, I mean the social media platform, it allowed Donald Trump to send a lot of false information, which led to the insurrection at the Capitol here. If the United States can be making such statements, then Nigeria is entitled to do so. That, look, allowing people to use this platform without any form of restraint can cause some kind of problem, damages one day, but they cannot. They don't have that ability now. They don't have that strength. They don't even have that technology to gag, to stop information through internet from disseminating completely.
Why do you say so?
Because how do you want to do that? For instance, you stop Twitter, but it's so easy from the bloggers, from a lot of platforms, people can actually run blogs. Might be before the adventure of Twitter, and people are even more used to blog like Nida Ikeji. And there are still so many blogs out there. And to set up a blog to allow people to share their idea is so short. And there are more social media platforms coming into the stream. So government does not have the ability to completely say we are going to stop gag people completely. But what government is targeting at this point is that those communication platforms that have become so giant that everybody are accustomed to, that they disseminate information more than any other information platform in the world, that there should be a sort of regulation. The timing is what makes everybody to be criticizing this government. So I don't think it's possible at this stage, at this time of the day, with this adventure of technology, for government to completely restrain people, to gag people from using any kind of social media. If you stop one, another will come forward. All
right, I understand we have Babatunde Ogundiro back online. Babatunde, if you can hear me, please kindly respond to what I asked you earlier with regards to the federal government's likely possibility now of lifting the Twitter ban. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I think there's a possibility of them lifting the Twitter ban, considering the fact that the government has actually set up a team made up of some high government officials to meet with the Twitter management team. So I think on that side, I think government is actually showing effort that they are willing to actually lift the ban. And then when you look at what has actually happened, like I said earlier on, before the network went bad, is that both Twitter and the federal government, or Nigerians as a whole, is actually losing. Because when you look at it, Twitter has a population of, we have about 40 million Nigerians using Twitter. And for example, most of our youth are actually engaging Twitter for e-commerce. So you are saying that for a source of livelihood, these people are actually making use of Twitter. And for a government that is talking about ease of doing business, we all know what the Presidential Enabling Council, Quebec, has been able to do in terms of ease of doing business in Nigeria. So I believe that since the government knows the impact of Twitter in the lives of Nigerian people, most especially in terms of e-commerce, which is actually made up of a lot of Nigerian youth. So I think they are willing and they are going to do something in the barest minimum. For example, they've set up a team, like I said, and the Twitter management is also looking in that direction to actually see how to engage the federal government. But mind you, it was actually the Twitter management that requested for a meeting with the federal government. So on both sides, I think they are all committed to ensure that they resolve the impasse.
And let's quickly digress a little bit. You mentioned something about the Twitter being used as e-commerce. Now, do you think perhaps those who have been using Twitter all this while have to rethink perhaps on a better way to re-strategize how to make their income or make a living with regards to depending solely on social media platforms? For instance, what are your thoughts? Is this another wake-up call for people who depend solely on social media to survive?
Yes, it's actually very important, and Jermaine, that if you're a business person and you rely solely on one particular tool, it behoves of you for you to know that you need to also look at alternatives, look at substitutes. But at this point in time, I think a lot of Nigerians are actually looking at other avenues, other platforms, likes of Instagram, Facebook, and other things to actually promote their businesses. But it's just unfortunate that Twitter has a very unique feature in the sense that you don't really need to say so much before you communicate your message to people. And for example, most people will...
All right, it seems we're having a little bit of a challenge with our resource person via Skype, but let's quickly go on a break. We'll be back with more on the program. Stay with us.
Around 8 o'clock like this, I begin to shoot everybody.
When the man is here now, we beg them, please, come. They don't help us, but when they spoil everything.
We have reported the matter to the police.
Welcome back to Newsweek. Now, finally, the police have arrested an undergraduate of University of Lagos for allegedly killing the chief executive officer of Super TV, Usifo Ataga. The 21-year-old student of mass communication was paraded before journalists in Lagos. NAC correspondent Ivy Kano reports.
After hours of waiting, the suspect walks into the venue of the briefing. As she sat down, the 21-year-old was deep in thought. The short-lived relationship started in March at a beach when her friend's boyfriend introduced her to the deceased. These exhibits are what she wore on that particular day she allegedly killed Usifo Ataga. Police say both her clothing and her handbag had blood stains when they were retrieved from her.
On Tuesday, she departed, left the man inside. So when the man did not come out on Tuesday, on Wednesday, I think those who are evacuating the trash bins, so went in to do their normal duty and discovered that the door to the apartment was a bit half opened. So the door was opened and to remove the trash, and the man was found on the floor in the pool of the blood with boxers only on. And we started our investigation, so started doing all the leads. And God's willing now, yesterday night, we were able to track her and got her arrested. She equally disappeared now with the man's ATM card, which she said the man gave to her voluntarily and equally gave her the pin, with which she thereafter went to make some withdrawals. So from that, when we got now, we blocked that line. And the man's driver license, and equally, so the man's other documents, the bank statement, the bag the man took there. So she went with all those things. and we recover all those. And
according to her, hard drugs were usually part of the adventure. She said late Osifo suffered 3 stabs.
The first one was twice the distance, the first one on the neck side. That was the first one. And then when I stabbed him the first one twice, I threw the knife on the bed. Then he was going for it while I went for it. So while I laid on the bed, that's when it came on me to hold the knife, and that's when I managed to stab him with the knife.
The murder suspect confirmed that she used a foreign number to book for the short service apartment.
It's an app that generates numbers.
How would you do that?
Yeah, it's possible. It's possible. I withdrew some money from it.
How much?
About 380. 5 million wasn't withdrawn from his account.
The suspect was tracked and arrested at her parents' residence in the Yaba area of Lagos. She will have her day in court. Ivy Kano, TVC News, Lagos.
Well, I still have our guests with me to discuss this. Babatunde Olushola Jegede, rather, a lawyer, and Babatunde Ogundiro, policy analyst, and he joins me via Skype. So let's start with you now, Olushola. This issue generally has thrown up many sides, but there is one particular question that I would like to ask is, what does law say with regards to the parade of criminal suspects in cases like this?
Well, this kind of a parade is made to generally by police to show what they are doing, what they to somewhat we could say is not completely lawful, because she was allowed to make a lot of inculpatory statements, which she, without a lawyer, which she should have, you know, maybe if she had had a lawyer, she had had a legal counsel before she made those statements, maybe she would not have said everything she has said in that instance. But having said that, the police they are merely just trying to show that they are doing their job, and the whole thing, it has been a very, it's an issue that has generated a lot of response, but it's a developing investigation with police, and it's so difficult to make much comment about it at this stage, because everybody believes a lot of things might still come up in the course of this investigation. But she made a lot of statements in that during that parade, which were everybody found shocking, that she could say everything she has said, that she could do all that at the age of 21.
But so how do you think this should have been handled, knowing how sensitive this matter is?
Well, first, she's an adult. So maybe if she has not been an adult, maybe police wouldn't have done what they did. Like I've said, what police has done is to merely demonstrate the effort they've put into this investigation. And I don't know, maybe they should have handled it better. But they want information to come out, and here we are. Just want information out there for everybody to see. And I don't know, and that has been the usual style of police. You know, when the investigation is ongoing, they want to show those statements that, look, we have the right person, and along the line, without even any kind of consult with a lawyer, she was allowed to make several inculpatory statements, a lot of admission. So we don't know what is going to happen, how it's going to go, but it's a very delicate investigation at this point, because everybody keep on asking, how did a 21-year-old girl manage to engage a 50-year-old man in duel and empower him and stab him today? It's not what you see regularly. So, but even the family released a statement today that they believe there's a kind of a third party that might be involved in this kind of a investigation. And I think we just still have to watch for a while before we can know what totally really happened in that.
Now, Babatunde, if you can hear me now, you know, with what Olushola has said, which is quite, you know, obvious what should have been done in this case, knowing how sensitive the matter is, but what would you say is the right procedure in handling cases like this, especially when journalists are involved? How do you think this matter should be reported?
Okay, for me, I think the first thing first is for detectives of the Nigerian police to actually swing into action. We, for now, don't have to jump into hasty conclusions because there are a lot of things that we need to know. And just like the lawyer just said, how can a 21-year-old lady or a 21-year-old girl overpower a 50-year-old man? And it's very obvious that we don't think she's actually the only one in that activity. Because from what we've clearly seen, it's obvious that this man was also tied, and according to what we read in the papers too, that there are some marks all over his body that was showing that this man was gagged, this man was tied and all. So for us to jump into conclusion for now, I think is not very best. So what we need to do first is to sit down. Let's see what the police will do in terms of investigation, and of course forensic. We need to see what is going to happen in terms of even the knife, all those things, the exhibits and things we have at the scene of the murder, and see what they are actually going to do about it in terms of forensic. Until that is done, before we can actually say one or two things. But for now, it's not advisable for us to jump into conclusion. And let us watch and see what the detectives or the men of the Nigerian police will do in terms of investigation.
And that's a fine place to leave it. Thank you very much, Babatunde Ogundiro, policy analyst, for your insights on the program this evening, and my guests in the studio, Olushola Jegede, lawyer. Thank you very much as usual for your thoughts.
Thank you for having me.
And that's it on our show tonight. Remember, you can follow our conversation on our social media platforms at TVC News NG and on our website, tvcnews.tv. Until the next one again, I am Esther Mapariola. Bye for now.